Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Stewart Robson's joining us today. Shaka and Stevie are back. Stewart, yesterday, Shaka started naming names when it came to centre-backs that he didn't want to give the ball to.
They didn't want the ball either.
But I mean, literally naming the names of all the centre-backs as well.
Who did he name? Who did he name?
It was mutual.
About 15 people.
Come on.
Can't remember. Can't remember.
Even Stevie was surprised, let's say, Stewart.
Mind you, there was a lot of centre-halves in latter days that didn't want to pass it back to Shaka because he couldn't play with his feet, could he?
That too is true. That too is true.
So that balances it out. First question tonight for Stewart. Are we watching the art of bottling presented by Arsenal?
Ooh, bottling's a strong word. My view is that Arsenal are too emotional. They've got to the top by being very emotional, whipping up the crowd and having to go at the referee and playing with passion. But passion and emotion only gets you so far. And when you get it wrong, and I think the manager at times gets it wrong, then you see the other side of it. And they're relying too much on the passion and the emotion rather than the understanding, the technical ability and the tactical understanding. And I don't think they're bottling it, but I think they might blow it.
Bottling, a strong word?
Yeah, no, I don't think they're bottling it. You know, generally when somebody bottles it, they become scared and unsure. I don't think you can say that about Arsenal. They're making mistakes because, you know, players make mistakes, and not every player that plays for Arsenal is a world beater. And so that's what happens. You make mistakes and sometimes you get punished for it, sometimes you don't. But in the last 3 games, they've been punished pretty much for every one they've made. So, yeah, I don't think they've bottled it.
I'll agree with Stuart and Steve. And to that point, you can look at the last 3 games and key moments in those games. I think my criticism of Arsenal is just not managing games as they need to be at this stage of the season. You know, we could talk about in all 3 games. Granit Xhaka against Liverpool, the missed penalty against West Ham, or Sydney the start against Southampton. Even when you make those mistakes, you still have to manage the game accordingly. And I just don't feel that Arsenal have done that. It's probably better to put that down to a lack of experience than opposed to just bottling it.
Next question. Stuart, is the lack of European games actually hurting Arsenal? They seem so nervous when they play now.
Again, I go back to emotions. I don't think it's hurting them, no. I mean, everybody said when they got knocked out of the Europa League, it was great for Arsenal. Now they could concentrate on the league. Now they could get, you know, their players fit, and they don't have to keep swapping players in and out. So I don't think it's hurting them. As the guys have just said, they've got players that I don't think are quite good enough in the squad. The likes of Holding certainly isn't good enough. I'm not sure Ben White as an out-and-out right back is good enough defensively. They've got players that are inexperienced that will make mistakes. The 2 centre-halves, when they're not playing at their very best, that don't quite read the game well enough, although Saliba has been brilliant before his injury. I just don't think Arsenal are quite to the level of Manchester City at the moment.
Have I been hibernating or something? They only got knocked out of Europe last week, right?
Who, Arsenal?
Aye. Last week?
Yeah, you have been hibernating.
I must have fell asleep or something. A couple of months.
It's been a few weeks, isn't it?
No.
Yeah.
When was it? It's only... All right, let's say 2 weeks, because that's all it is, maximum.
It's got to be more than that.
Okay, for argument's sake, even if it's 4 weeks, what does it... You're saying
I'm going to
factor in?
stop right now. Hold on.
This time of the year, to have a rest. How does that make any sense? Oh, no, can't believe it. Oh, we don't have a game for 6 days. I think I'm going to have to talk to the journalists and complain that we don't have a game.
Arsenal got knocked out March 16th. So a month ago.
So have been hibernating. Fair enough. Well, I thought I had a good sleep.
That was last week. Oh, goodness me.
All right. You can't win now. You can't win, because then when they do get knocked out, you go, oh, well, at least they can concentrate on the league now.
God, I was saying last week.
Maybe the problem is they played 8 games in a week.
Hey?
Don't stop.
Since they got knocked out. Since they got knocked out. That's the whole problem. They played 8 games since getting knocked out in a week.
How many years ago was it since you retired?
3.
Retired of what?
How many years ago was it since he lost his marbles? More like it.
Stewart, where's the praise for Roy Hodgson? 3 wins from 3 games since he retired.
Well, if I remember rightly, I was on a show a little while ago, and Shaka said to me, "It's a disgrace that they got rid of Patrick Vieira, an absolute disgrace." And I said, "Well, they were going in the wrong direction. I saw them play several times. He didn't look as though he was inspiring the players. The tactics weren't particularly good, so they had to get somebody else in." I didn't expect it to be Roy Hodgson, but obviously he's got the players working hard for him. They've been well organised and they've got results. So you have to give him some credit, and you give the board some credit for making a big decision that Shaka said they should never have made.
Who have they played? They played
Doesn't
teams
matter.
down the bottom. My point then was, hold on. My point then was, which was my camera? Two. My point then was, Palace's run from the turn of the year to when Vieira got sacked was they played teams in the top 6. They played United twice, Brighton twice, Liverpool, okay, not in the top 6.
And then I told you that they
played
hadn't had a
Aston
shot
Villa.
for 4 games.
Those were the teams they played. And then from then on in, they had the Arsenal game. By the way, in those games against the top 6, they never lost by more than a single goal. They come up against Arsenal, they lose what was it, 4-1, 5-1? Yeah. And then they play teams at the bottom. You cannot equate Palace beating Leeds to Palace losing against Manchester City. It's ridiculous.
In Patrick Vieira's bad run over whatever many games it was, they didn't play anybody near the bottom of the table. They only played teams at the top. It was a long run they went on without creating chances.
The only team, they lost to Southampton in the Cup, but in the league, they only played top 6 and Chelsea and Liverpool.
Liverpool's good, isn't it?
Well, whose side what are you saying? Whose side are you on?
All I'm saying is you cannot say, well, oh, look how they've turned things around now by beating Leeds when you lose 1-0 to a Manchester City penalty. It's not, you can't equate it.
Robbo,
you can't.
He's got his power rankings head on here.
No, but
I see, yeah.
Also,
He's
to that
things,
point, that is exactly what I said. That's exactly what I said then.
That's the first bit of homework
as soon as they start playing teams at the bottom, that's where Palace's season will be judged. Not on whether they lose to Brighton twice.
Patrick Vieira in charge. They would not have won the games with Patrick Vieira in charge.
Well, that's just a hypothetical. Or we could also say with Patrick Vieira in charge, they wouldn't have lost by more than a goal to Arsenal. We could also say that. We could also say it would have been a far closer thing against Arsenal. But they get tanked against Arsenal.
So does it?
And then they're going to
I'll ask you the question, Shaka. I'll ask you the question. Does it look like a good decision at the moment to sack Patrick Vieira and bring in Roy Hodgson? Does it look a good decision?
It looks a good decision to an uneducated eye.
That's all you need to say.
To an uneducated eye. I told I told you this was going to happen. Right then, I told you this was going to happen. So don't
just the Patrick
make it seem
Vieira
like
lover.
all of a sudden it's a surprise. It's not a surprise. Or it shouldn't be a surprise.
What did you tell him?
That as soon as they start playing teams at the bottom of the table, they'd win. Okay. It shouldn't be a surprise. I don't know why it's a surprise.
I don't remember that.
I think he's just added that bit.
I think he has.
That was my entire point. That was my entire point. That they were playing very good teams.
So you're not going to give Roy Hodgson any credit?
To them.
The question was, should we praise Roy Hodgson?
They were in every single game, and they were going to be judged on the games to come. You don't sack him. You don't sack him then for that run just because the computer threw out the schedule that way.
Yes,
that was my entire point.
Stuart, go and get your eyes educated, all right? And then we're going to.
That was my entire point.
See, I can never work these computers either.
What?
These computers.
That's going to come back up again, isn't it? That's twice that. All right, for all, if Arsenal bottle the league, do you think they can win it next season? How do young players come back from being so close and losing? Could be highly demotivating. Stevie?
It's called desire. That's how you come back. You don't just because something goes against you, you don't just pack it in, do you? You get bigger, stronger, and get after it and get your desire back. And obviously, they could do with a couple more signings. so that when they lose somebody as important as Saliba, they have somebody to step in and there's not such a big drop-off. You know, it's absolutely those two things. A couple of more signings, get stronger, get a stronger squad, but absolutely desire has to be.
I think the club and the board have to remain committed to Arteta's vision and the project that's going on. And now, listen, I say this from a position of experience, given what happened to us in 95, 96. I think, and Franco, to use Frank's term, you have to hit the post first before it goes in. You have to come close. And that's what you're seeing with Arsenal right now. That's what happened to Newcastle in 95, 96. The difference then was the club kind of changed its focus. Newcastle, for some reason, wanted to float on the stock market as Manchester United did, and Keegan left halfway through. He was being undermined from people upstairs in the club. Keegan left halfway through the following season. But for that, if everybody at the club continued to back Kevin Keegan, we'd be having a very different discussion about that period of Newcastle's history. To that point, learning from that history, Arsenal as a club, as a board, have to continue to back Arteta. Stand by him, support him with signings, continue on his vision and project, and I think it will come good for Arsenal. Don't just scrap your playbook at this point.
All right. Is it the player or the manager's fault for the silly mistakes trying to play out from the back we're accustomed to seeing these days? OK, I'll start with you, Stuart.
Sometimes, because the manager might say, I want you to play out from the back no matter what. And he's got to give them options. He's got to get good movement. That's what Pep Guardiola does with his players. They know where the next pass is. But they've also got to rely on the players to make good decisions. And sometimes the right decision, when the opposition press you high up the field and there isn't a pass out from the back, you have to go that little bit longer. And that's what Ederson has done so well for Man City over the years. When it's the right time, he bypasses the playing out from the back, goes into the front, and Man City can cause problems that way. It's all about decision making. The manager sort of sets the philosophy, but the players still have to make the decisions on the field.
Shaka, let's go back to David de Gea if we can. Obviously, contract talks at the moment. There's a lot of talk about his future, particularly with what we saw about Sevilla. Ten Hag wants a goalkeeper who's good with his feet. We know he gets paid a lot of money. What do you think should happen with this player?
It's difficult in that I'm not sure who is the likely replacement. If there's a ready-made replacement who fits into a style of football and can bring the kind of goalkeeping quality that David de Gea does, then absolutely it makes sense. And while we're talking about De Gea renewing his contract, the suggestions are that he's going to take a pay cut. How meaningful that is, I guess, determines, you know, how good a decision that will be for the club. But even so, I say it'd be good to have two quality goalkeepers in the club, but I don't know if David de Gea wants to be a number two. Let's just assume that there is that young goalkeeper who's great with his feet that Ten Hag wants to bring in. I'm not sure that David de Gea sees himself as a number two. He's, 32 years old now, or somewhere around there. I don't think that's a role that he sees himself playing right now. So that becomes a bit of an issue. But you don't let David de Gea go out of contract until you have a replacement.
What do you think is going to happen with this situation, or what do you think should happen, Stuart?
Well, we keep changing our minds on David de Gea. You know, 1 minute we're saying he's Manchester United's best player and he's been brilliant for them all season. He makes a couple of mistakes and suddenly, you know, don't give him another contract and he's not good enough and you need to get another goalkeeper in. You know, I'm of a view that goalkeepers are goalkeepers. They should be good at saving, they should be good at taking crosses, and the playing out from the back is second string. You know, they've got to make good decisions, not take too many risks. And I think if you're asking a goalkeeper to take risks, you're always going to see mistakes. I would like to see David de Gea get back to his best form because I think he's an outstanding goalkeeper. So stay at Manchester United.
You know, to that point, and Stu was talking about Ederson, you know who has been simply outstanding as well in that role? Sanchez for Brighton. I think he has been his decision-making as to when to go short, when to just kick it long as need be, I think is right up there, and I could probably make the argument even better than Ederson. He doesn't have the passing range of Ederson, so that's... But in terms of decision-making, I'll be honest, at this rate, Brighton are going to have no players come August because everybody's going to be buying everybody. Because so many players have just stood out from back to front for Brighton. that if the big clubs come calling, you just wonder where they turn to next. But that's the kind of player, that's the kind of goalkeeper you could see taking De Gea's place.
Yeah, Pep Guardiola was praising them, saying that they're best at playing out from the back, Bryson, right now. That is high praise indeed. Last question. Shaka, it's 1996. You're in your two-seat Maserati and you're having a night out. Who's getting the second seat from ESPN FC members?
First of all, I did not have a Maserati in 1996. I drove a Rover or something. What was it? I bought my Maserati slightly later than that. That's all I'm going to commit to at this point.
Stewart disputes this fact.
Stewart disputes every fact.
I mean, I couldn't think of anything more flash with that Maserati. I've still got the picture in my head. Maserati with Shaka on the back, with his scarf flailing out the side of the car. He's driving gloves on. I mean,
good Lord.
And anybody that's recognised him, he gave him a little wave out the window. Oh, it was embarrassing. Embarrassing.
Would you like to be in that passenger seat, though, Stuart?
No.
Oh,
He's not invited.
absolutely.
No, he's not invited.
Hey, did I ever
I've
tell
been
you
waving out the other window.
I'll tell you the one with Paul Walsh?
No.
Paul Walsh played with us. And Walsh was single. And he had one of those little two-seaters. I don't know if it was a Maserati or what it was, but it was one of those types of cars. And I remember coming out of my house, coming down the main road, and he went past, right? And he'd been shopping. And of course, there's no way to put anything.
Right, yeah.
And all I could see was this huge French loaf. You know those loaves? It was about this loud, and it was sticking out the roof. All the shopping was in the back of the car, in the seat, and this big French loaf sticking out the top of the roof.
Kate,
Brilliant.
Kate, Stevie's got no idea about cars. He's mixing up a Maserati with a little Mazda, those two-seater Mazdas. That's what Paul Walsh had.
But let's not sway from the fact that Shaka hasn't given us an answer.
I was hoping.
Come on, Shaka.
So who's your wingman, basically? Who's your wingman?
I'm not sure that I have a wingman.
You don't need a wingman.
I'm not sure who I can trust.
Well, let's do process of elimination. Do you want Craig Burley in there with you?
No.
Do you want Stevie in there?
I tell you, Steve will be a good wingman.
Yep.
I think Steve is a good wingman.
I've been a wingman.
Stevie, yes, I'll go with Stevie.
All right.
I'll go with Stevie.
Stevie Nicol, it is not
Wouldn't
you.
be able to
Stuart.
fit his bears in the
No,
car,
but obviously not me.
Nah,
invited.
definitely not Stuart.
They're
Definitely.
absolutely
What
not
about Roy
right. Not you
Hodgson?
and not
Would
Roy
you put Roy
Hodgson
Hodgson
either.
next to you?
Hey, what with Gab? Who's Gab?
Where would I fit? I'd have Roy. Good old Roy.
Why did you say We're done. That's it. We'll see you this weekend for a lot more. On Extra.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.